Okay, let's take on another component of language. Let's focus on morphology. Of all the components we're going to discuss, this is probably the most challenging to understand. And I'm probably going to take you a little bit deeper than we need to go, but by providing that context, I hope to enhance your understanding. Let's go back. Phonology is about the study of sounds. Orthography is about the study of print, of symbols, of written symbols, of letters. And we use sounds and we use letters in combination to build words. And that's really what morphology is about. Morphology, in general, it's about words. But I want to take you a little bit deeper because it's about the chunks of words, the parts of words. And those parts have names. We call them morphemes. And there are two types of morphemes. We have things called free morphemes, and we have things called bound morphemes. And we're going to focus on those in just a few minutes. But in morphology, we take both free and we take bound morphemes, and we combine them together. And through that combination, through combining them, we can change a word's meaning, or we can change a word's function. Function is about its grammatical function. By adding morphemes, we can change an adjective to an adverb. We can take a verb and we can make it into a noun. When we start moving these little parts around inside of words, it's very confusing for children who are learning English as a second language, and it's very confusing for children with disabilities. It makes their grammar when they speak and when they write sound just a little bit off. So we want to do what we can to help improve children's use of English morphemes. So I need a little bit more space here, and I'm going to move, I'm going to move these out of the way. As we mentioned, morphology is comprised of both free morphemes and bound morphemes. Let's look at free morphemes first. Free morphemes, we often think of them as just words. And these little chunks, or these words, are free to appear all by themselves. R is a free morpheme. It's a morpheme that also functions as a word. She, fish, view. Again, they're morphemes. They're individual morphemes. They're single morphemes that also function as words. Here's some additional morphemes. Quick, walk, cat, want. So just to paraphrase, a free morpheme is a word that's free to appear all by itself. But some free morphemes, we can add things to them to change them. And that's where bound morphemes come in. Let's turn our attention now to bound morphemes. This is more complicated, and it's really the bound morphemes that create challenges for some of the students that we are working with. So a couple examples of bound morphemes, these aren't all bound morphemes by any means, are prefixes and suffixes. Okay? Now prefixes, I don't think they surprise you in any way. An example would be re, another example would be pre. These are bound morphemes. They're not words all by themselves because bound morphemes have to be bound or connected to another morpheme. They're not words alone. Where a free morpheme is both a word and a morpheme on its own. Let me just take my little word circle here. And I'm going to take a free morpheme. It's free to be a word by itself. but it can also link up with some other morphemes, like a bound morpheme. I can take pre and add it to view, and I've changed the meaning of the word. Because again, morphemes build words and they help to change the meanings of words. View is to see something, preview is to see something before. And the same idea is true of review. When I add that prefix, that bound morpheme, I've changed the meaning of the word. I'm playing with the word's structure. Suffixes are a little bit more complicated than prefixes, and I hope I have the space here. Suffixes, these bound morphemes, can be split into both derivational and inflectional. Derivational morphemes change a word's grammatical function. An example would be ing, another example would be ly. When I take these two bound morphemes of ing and ly, they're bound morphemes, they're not words unto themselves, they're not free, they have to be connected to some other morphemes. But when I do connect them to other morphemes, I change that word's grammatical function. Let's grab quick. Quick is a free morpheme. It's typically an adjective. But when I combine it with this derivational morpheme, I've changed it into an adverb. Same thing is true with ing. I can take a very traditional verb like walk, but when I add a derivational suffix to it, like ing, I can change it into a noun. Listen to this sentence. Walking is good for you. In that sentence, walking is behaving as a noun. So it went from a verb to a noun. That's what derivational suffixes do. Inflectional suffixes change a word's meaning, not its grammatical function. And some examples of inflectional suffixes, I don't have much space here, I'm going to pop them up here, are ed and s. So if I pop ed or if I pop s on the end of another morpheme, I'm not changing it grammatically, but I'm changing the meaning. Let's look. Cat's a noun. And if I take, grab that S. I got to grab that S here. Fix that up over here. And if I grab that S and add it to it, I've added that suffix to it. It's an inflectional suffix. It's still a noun. Cat's a noun. Cats is a noun. But I've changed the meaning of the word. I've gone from a singular to a plural. That's a hard dimension of our language for English language learners and students with disabilities to sometimes catch on to. How to make nouns plural and to use plural nouns or to use singular nouns. Let's move that back out of the way. Let's look at another example. Let's take a very traditional verb, want. When I take an inflectional suffix, I can't grab onto that there, like ed, I go from want to wanted. I haven't changed the grammatical function of the word. It was a verb, and it's still a verb, but I've changed its meaning. I've gone from an active tense to a past tense. And you'll notice with your students, changing tenses, that subtlety of our English language can be a challenge for them. So, morphology is a challenging concept. Hang with me Don't get frustrated. We'll play with this more as the semester unfolds. But it's really about words and the little clusters that we combine to build words, to change a word's meaning, or to change its grammatical function.